Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has secured his return to Parliament, winning the federal by-election in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot. Speaking to supporters after the win, Poilievre promised to keep fighting for the people of the riding and across the country.
So that we can once again restore a country that is strong, self-reliant, and sovereign. That is the country we're in this for. That is why we stay united. That is why we go forward. May God keep our land glorious and free. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Poilievre was widely expected to win, which is considered one of the safest Conservative seats in the country. With the victory, the Conservative leader will be back in the House of Commons in time for the fall session. Poilievre took more than 80% of the vote, followed in second place by independent candidate Bonnie Critchley. Joining me now is political analyst Lori Turnbull. Lori, hello to you. Thanks for being with us this morning. So what do you make of the win last night? It was all but guaranteed for Pierre Poilievre.
Pretty much. I think the question was going to be, does he get to that 80%-ish threshold? And he did, because that seems to be the standard for Conservative candidates in that riding. Damien Carrick before him just a few months ago got around 82, 83%. 2021, it was a bit lower, but before that it was around 80% too. And so it's not like Poilievre had to just come in and win. There was a real sense that there is a Conservative vote sitting there for him, and he has to get it. He has to get it all, or else there's going to be questions about, whether he's really got the hold on the party that he needs to have at this point. I think, it would be remiss not to point out Bonnie Critchley with over 5,000 votes as an independent candidate is a really interesting outcome. And I think, it's possible that some of the people who would typically vote Conservative heard her message around, Pierre Poilievre doesn't live here. I'm someone who lives here, who's been here, who is like a real local candidate. And I think the whole thing has prompted some really interesting questions about being able to run in a riding that you don't live in that's legal. We're able to do that in Canada, but I think there's been some thought about this in the past while. And I mean, totally. Mark Carney I don't think he lives in Nepean, and so Pierre Poilievre is not the only one. But I think we've kind of been thoughtful about this in a different way, over the past couple of months.
Interesting. So that was sort of one hurdle that Poilievre needed to overcome. The second is the upcoming leadership review in January. Does yesterday's win, and again, as you point out, he reached that 80% threshold. Does it mean anything for that review coming up in the new year?
Yes, because I think, say, for example, if Pierre Poilievre had not hit that 80%, say if he won, and even by a lot, but it was more like 65. For the rest of, for people who are not necessarily part of the Conservative movement and they're not right in that kind of constituency, that may not have made much of a difference. It's, whether you win or lose, right? But for the Conservatives who are looking at how can we form the next government, how can we start to take some points down, with Mark Carney, given the fact that he's so high in the polls, and clearly that's much broader than the Liberal base. He appeals to a good chunk of the Conservative movement as well. What can we do to kind of bring Carney down? If Poilievre looks like he's not accessing, again, that vote, that huge Conservative vote that seems to be sitting in Battle River Crowfoot, that would be an indication perhaps that the Conservatives have something to worry about. And so I think because he's got that 80%, he can go into the leadership review with a much, with a lot more calm than would otherwise be the case. But even in 2021, when Erin O'Toole was leader of the party, some of the people who won, but won by less of a margin, were the ones who were in the caucus were particularly concerned about whether Erin O'Toole was the right person to take the party forward. And as we know, a few months later, they ended up using the Reform Act to end his leadership.
Lori Turnbull for us this morning. Lori, always great to see you. Thanks again.